Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining again today. As the presenters before me said, today we're going to talk about 529s. Very fitting, given today is May 29th. Um, I wanted to go through today a few different types of 529s, features, benefits. We're going to talk through how do you make contributions, withdrawals, do some Q&A, um, go over some alternative ways that you can spend or fund your children's education or anybody's education, including yourself. So happy to be here again, and let's get started. So why do people go through and get an education? Simply, it might seem like a silly question, but there is solid statistical data that shows a correlation between a higher education and lower unemployment. So, yes, you want to go to school, get educated, be able to function in this world. But when you get a higher level of formal education, if you look at the chart, you can actually see there's a higher level of education equals a lower level of unemployment for your lifetime. Once you hit about an associate's degree of education, you start going below the median level of unemployment as of 2022. So associate's degree, you're at 1,005 in regards to median usual weekly earnings, and that's 2.7 on the unemployment rate. This is important, right? When you're looking at people who want full employment and stay employed throughout their lifetime, there is a direct correlation. Higher education equals lower employment. So, all right, perfect. We know that. That was kind of a no-brainer. But the problem is we have built the society to have education costs, unfortunately, have continued to increase. Dorms are getting nicer, new buildings, new facilities, new dorms. The list goes on. And so college costs have continued to increase. In this chart, there's private, public, and then all institutions kind of lumped together. And you can see from 2009, 2010, it had been basically a steady rate up until we hit about 2019, 2020. At that point, private especially peaked, and we're starting to see it drift down a little bit, but really it's still going up about 5%. The rate of increase is no longer 10, now it's 5. So we expect the college cost to continue, and so your savings today needs to be able to grow with it. And that's the important thing because college education costs are not staying static, and neither should your savings when you're trying to, send multiple kids to school or help out family with those education costs. So, what is the average tuition costs and all the other ancillary expenses, right? Rarely is the tuition the biggest piece. Tuition actually is one of the smaller pieces when you look at college in most cases. In a public college, it definitely is. You got tuition, room and board, books, supplies, travel. And if you look, those numbers are kind of pretty eye-opening, Oh, tuition isn't that bad, but then everything else, you're still at $20,000. You look at a 4-year in-state, closer to 30 a year. I know, my aunt and their cousins, all went to state schools, thought that it was going to be on a cheaper side. They actually found out they could go out of state cheaper than in-state because of the incentives from scholarships and merit awards and things of that nature. So, look at these numbers. These numbers give you more of a reality check on what the average college tuition costs, along with all of the other costs that, are coming with it. So the average cost of just tuition, on a national average is about $43,000. You just take college um, private and college public into consideration. So what do we do, right? We have this significant cost. We know it's increasing in price. So what do we do? Well, the wonderful government decided, hey, we're going to put a tax code, line 529 in the tax code, or section 5, chapter 29. And the 529 is a tax advantage plan. It's a savings vehicle designed to help save for future education expenses for a specific beneficiary. Now, that beneficiary is very broad, which is great. But the concept is you put in money today, it grows tax deferred, and then you can take it out tax free later in life. That's a huge advantage, right? You're not getting necessarily a federal deduction up front, but you could get a state deduction on some of the money that you're putting in, and then you are growing it for 15, 20 years or more. And then the money's being used for a qualified education expense. It comes out, and you don't have to pay any taxes on any of that growth. This is specifically designed for college, not retirement. Just wanted to make sure people weren't trying to can't use this like as a super Roth and use it for your own benefit. You got to use it for education. So there's two main types of 529s. One is a prepaid tuition plan. The other is a college savings plan. So a prepaid tuition plan allows you to purchase future tuition credits at today's prices, locking in the cost of education. They're usually limited to in-state colleges and universities, public. However, we've started to see that change. Virginia, for example, used to have a prepaid tuition plan. They no longer offer it. And that's gone, that's continued throughout the different states. We're actually seeing prepaid tuition plans more prevalent in the private universities rather than the public universities. You also have college savings plans. These are investment accounts that let you save money for education expenses, and the funds can be used for a wide range of education institutions and expenses, but it's a wider range, tuition, room and board, books, etc. So we're going to go through some of those plans today. So features of a 529, 529s are nice because they are flexible. So the funds can be used for various education expenses, tuition, room and board, books, even K through 12 tuition, in some cases up to a certain dollar amount. The other part is high contribution limits for 529s. Most 529s have the ability for you to save substantial amounts of money each month. 20, 30, $40,000 easily can be put in each year, with a annual lifetime max of in the 200 and some $1,000. Most people don't put in that amount of money. 529s can have professional management. You can work with a financial professional, an advisor like myself. Virginia has a self-directed plan through Virginia Best, and then they also have College America through American Funds where you utilize an advisor. It's up to you, but having the ability to have professional management allows it a little easier to make those decisions on what investments to use, and hopefully put you in a more comfortable spot in regards to choosing the investments and getting to your goals of growing that savings for the education. The other part of 529s is there's not a lot of maintenance. Once you set it up, they require minimal effort to maintain, and you can manage it online. So it's not like this arduous process and pain point that you have to deal with every month or every year. Control and ownership. So this is important. You retain control of your 529. There's a beneficiary, normally your children or a niece, a nephew, something like that, but you retain control of the funds. It is not you giving the money. You are growing the money for an education purpose, and then they are the beneficiary. So you retain a lot of control and ownership, and you can change the beneficiary. So beneficiary flexibility is really important. Maybe somebody decides not to pursue a higher education. Maybe they get a full ride. You can transfer the funds to another eligible family member without penalty. So all of these benefits make 529 plans a really popular choice for families looking to save for education expenses efficiently, right? Because efficiency equals tax advantages normally, and the growth compounds over multiple years. So it's important to understand that some states have tax advantages associated with the 529 with regards to contributions. Some states don't. Before opening these, I recommend that you dive into each state's offering. You do not need to be in the state that you plan on going to school. You don't have to have the 529 because you just live in that state. You can choose any state to have a 529. Some states there are advantages from an income deduction perspective, other states there's not. So look around, find a state-specific plan that fits your needs and that you desire, or consult a professional. So tax benefits, we kind of talked a little bit about that, but tax-free growth, right? It's like a Roth IRA, but it's a Roth for your college education. Tax-free growth. If you started as soon as they're born, you've got 21 years approximately of tax-free growth, which is a significant amount of time. You also have a tax deduction, potentially on the federal side, depending on your income, and also on the state income side, depending on the state you live in and your income. You also have the advantage of gift tax benefits. So contributions to 529s are really normally considered gift from tax purposes if it's from outside the family nebula in the US, or excuse me. So that helps you with reducing your US estate tax liability, which can be valuable if you are in that situation where you need to do estate planning to reduce tax liability. This is a great way to give money to future generations to help them gain the education that they desire. So always important to look at the benefits. They are a little state specific in regards to the tax side of the 529, but across all states from federal earnings on this investment, you will never be taxed on it as long as you use it for a qualified education expense. So what do you need to do, right? So when you're opening a 529, it's normally opened by an account owner who is responsible for managing the day-to-day contributions of the account. So here's some additional details of who can open and manage 529s. So the account owner is the person that establishes and maintains the 529. They manage the investments inside of it in conjunction with an advisor, or if it's a individual-led plan, they choose the investments. This is often a parent, a guardian, a grandparent, but it can actually be anybody, even the student themselves. But there can only be one account owner. 529 plans are not joint owners. The beneficiary can be any person whom the 529 funds are intended to be used for those qualified educations. The beneficiary can be the account owner, it can be another family member, it can even be a friend, as long as the beneficiary meets the plan's eligibility criteria. Sometimes there's successor owners, depends on the state. This allows an account owner to designate a successor, kind of like a beneficiary, to own that account. That person would assume control if something happens to the original account owner. It's always a good idea to designate a successor owner to ensure continuity in regards to the 529 plan. Authorized users, the account owner maintains all the control, but an authorized user may be allowed to look at the account, make contributions, but they don't have the same level of control as the account owner. And then finally, there's a financial advisor or custodian. So in some cases, the financial advisor or custodians will help set up and manage the 529s on behalf of their clients. Case in point, Virginia. Virginia has Virginia Vest. That is a individual-led plan. You make all the decisions. And then you also have College America in Virginia through American Funds, where the advisor and yourself will make joint decisions to set up the 529 best suited to meet your goals. So those things are important. And then lastly, you can actually put 529s inside a trust or an entity. That's some more advanced estate planning, but we've seen people utilize and overfund 529s to create legacy education funds for their families to go on multi-generational. So if that's something that's interested, there is some advanced planning that needs to take place. I would reach out to your advisor or financial professional that can help guide you through that stuff. So who can contribute to a 529? Virtually anybody, parents, grandparents, relatives. There's no income restrictions. You can try to maximize the annual contribution or the lifetime contribution limit. It's extremely high. I don't recommend doing that most of the time. And then you contribute by through ACH. You can write checks to the fund. You can do it monthly, quarterly, annually, or ad hoc. So you've got a lot of flexibility in regards to how you can contribute to the 529. So now that we've got contributing done, well, how do we get the money? How do we use the money from the fund? Well, you can use it for qualified education expenses. Eligible institutions, they need to be certified, right? They need to be accredited education institution. You need to understand the payment process for the 529s. Each state is a little bit different. Timing and distributions, when do you want to use those funds, right? Direct payment, um, you want to look at planning ahead, right? So when is tuition due? When do you need it? Normally, it's not 1 day, 2 days to get the funds. It's probably a week to 2 weeks, depending on how you have it set it up. The other thing is you want to make sure that you are not paying for non-qualified expenses. If you do, and the IRS finds out and does an audit or questions it, you will have to pay full tax on the gains and a 10% penalty on the distribution. So it is not worth trying to pay for non-qualified expenses. So 529s in general, federal statute put it into place. It's in the IRS code. However, there's specific state benefits that sometimes apply. Many states offer tax incentives for residents who contribute to the state's 529 plan. These incentives can include deductions or credits on your state income tax, and it can lead to significant savings over time. Some states are more generous than others. It just depends what state you live in. That is one reason you consider the state you live in. If you don't have in-state benefits, well, then it might be worth looking at all the other states that are out there. You want to look at, the ease of managing the plan. Managing a plan in your own state could be more convenient, could be easier to access customer support, in-person assistance, local financial institutions, or it may not. So you want to take that into consideration. And then lastly, as we talked about, some states will offer a tax deduction or credit for its 529. Other states won't. Virginia does, DC does, Texas does not, for an example. So you always want to look at what are the specific state benefits, access, and incentives to use the state plan versus an outside plan. So why would you use an outside stand? Well, like Texas, no in-state tax advantages. Well, I don't like how the Texas plan is put together theoretically. I want to use Virginia's plan because I'm familiar with American funds and I want to use them. So then you open a 529 in Virginia, even though you live in Texas. That could be stronger investment performance, right? No state tax benefits, right? Like Texas. There is no residency requirement. You can open a 529 in any state that you want to. The other part is maybe you lived in Virginia and now you're moving to Maryland. You can move the funds from a Virginia 529 into a Maryland 529. There's interstate portability. There's no issues there. There are some unique features that are out there that may suit your needs, from specialized investment options, additional beneficiary perks, or different rules that better suit your needs. So it's always good to look at those other states and see what's available out there. How do we get success, right? So here's a few tips on managing and maximizing the 529. Start early. As soon as that child has that Social Security number, you can start a 529 for them. Even a small amount on a consistent basis right away, early, will be more powerful than putting large amounts later in life because you have the power of compound interest and earnings that are growing tax-free. Make those contributions on a regular, consistent basis. Leverage the tax benefits if you are in a state or using a state that has those benefits. Some employers offer, education matching if you're going to put into a 529. So always make sure you reach out to your employer and see if there's anything there. Gifts from family, friends, grandparents, etc. always a great place. Do they really need that other toy, or would you rather have them put the $50 towards the 529, write a check to College America or something of that nature? That will help grow your balances. Invest strategically. Do not put this all in a money market fund, especially if you have multiple years, 10, 15 years to go. You want it aggressively growing to meet the needs of the children who are the beneficiary of this. The last thing I would just say is just because they enter college, you have 4 more years of making contributions into the 529, which could grow 10, 15% if the market's doing well. So keep putting money into the 529 if you can, even after they're enrolled in college or their educational institution. So there's been a few enhancements in 529s recently from the Secure Act 1.0 and Secure Act 2.0, and then even previous legislation. So 529s, can now be used to pay down student loans. So this came out with the Secure Act, which is Secure Act 1.0 in December 2019. So parents can now use their 529 college plans to pay down up to $10,000 in student loans. These loans can be owned by the student or their siblings, which gives them greater flexibility to use the 529s. Again, this would be another reason why to keep contributing to the 529s and then maybe pay the loans a little later. K through 12 used to not be able to use this, but in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts of 2018, 529 plans were expanded to help distribute up to $10,000 per unit per year per student to cover K through 12, which is incurred at public or private or religious elementary or secondary schools. That was a big improvement. Another next improvement, this was from the Secure Act 2.0, changes to grandparents. The 529s, if the grandparents put money into a 529, it used to penalize them by having those funds be considered in the FAFSA asset application as income potential. It would reduce the student's eligibility. Under the new rules, FAFSA will no longer ask about such distributions, and the new streamlined FAFSA accompanying the schedules that started in 2023. So the other piece about the 529, which was Secure Act 2.0, was the fact that you can now roll over contributions that were made into a Roth, or excuse me, a 529 plan that you no longer need. Up to 35,000 can be rolled over excess into a Roth for that child, for that beneficiary. Now, the limit is 35,000. It can't happen all in 1 year. It's subject to the annual max. So right now it's 7,000. So it would take 5 years for that money to go. The other piece is for that to happen, the plan must be 15 years old. So 15 years old is a long amount of time. You want to make sure, again, we've talked about starting early with the 529s. This is another reason why you want to start early. The lifetime max is 35,000. You can't do it, to multiple, just because you have multiple 529s doesn't mean you can do 35 times 3 if you had 3 of them to one person. It's one lifetime max per beneficiary, 35,000. The contribution limits apply, as I just said, 7,000 per year till you get to 35. The nice thing is Roth IRA income limits don't apply, but you do have to have earned income to be able to make those contributions because it counts as your Roth IRA contribution. You cannot distribute the IRA distributions early, right? So any of this money that goes in there, you've got the 59.5, 10% penalty. You got to wait till then, otherwise you will receive that penalty. So let's talk about what else could you do if you're like, no, Roth sounds good, but maybe they're a little much. I don't think I'm going to be putting much in, or maybe I just want, a different way to go about it. So you have Coverdell Education Savings Accounts, ESAs. They're not super common anymore because of the 529s, but they're still out there. 529s have a lot of flexibility. Coverdales do have some tax advantage for higher education. The funds can be used for eligible elementary, secondary expenses, including higher education, but not everybody's eligible. right? Anybody can do a 529. In a ESA, there's income limits. For example, individuals can open an ESA with an adjusted gross income of 110, but there's a $220,000 income cap towards couples. Contributions can only be made up to 18, and the max is $2,000 a year. So you're not going to be able to put a ton of money into an ESA. Now, it might still be a good option to be, hey, I'm going to do a 529 and an ESA, and we're going to have two buckets that we can use too. But at 18, there has to be a movement where the money goes to the beneficiary. And you must have a written document governing an account adhering to specific requirements. So ESAs are there. It's another tool that you can leverage. It's not the most popular just because of the low deduction, excuse me, the AGI requirements and the low maximum that can be put in per year. You can make them in cash. They're not deductible. Individuals below certain income thresholds, organizations, but it must be contributed by the tax return date without extension. So there'll be April 15th. And again, like I said, $2,000 per beneficiary. The other part about ESAs is the distributions, right? So they are, if it grows, like, and they're used for a qualified education expense, it's tax-free. Taxable portion only if distributions exceed expenses, which hopefully it wouldn't, given the $2,000 annual limit. Funds must be distributed 30 days after the beneficiary turns 30. 529s have no such rule. ESA contributions need to be distributed by 30, or 30 days after they passed. Family transfers are allowed, so that's in sync with the 529, but 529s do not have to be distributed at any given date. What else is there? Well, there's custodial accounts. Funds can be invested inside of these custodial accounts known as UGMAs, UTMAs, and they're opened by parents, save for dependents. The account transfers to the child once they reach an age of maturity. That age of maturity is dictated by the state. That could be 18, could be 21. It depends on where you live. So with this type of account, parents can contribute funds into the amount up to the gift tax exclusion and then invest on behalf of their dependent. Type of college savings plan has no limits, and anyone can contribute up to the annual gift tax exclusion amount. Funds in this type of account can be invested for maximum growth. Anybody can contribute. The funds can be used for paying for anything, not just higher specific education expenses. There are contribution caps and there are fees for this account, and taxes do apply for the withdrawals. So what's the advantage? Well, it's a gift, right, on the front end, but after that, you can do anything you want with the money, but you're paying for taxes on the way out on any of the growth. So there are some upfront benefits, but there's not long-term benefits like there could be in a 529. Roth IRAs. Sometimes we get questions about individuals who are like, look, I don't know if they're going to go to college. I'm just going to take that money instead of putting it into a 529. I'm going to put it in my Roth. And if I need to, I can take out my principal that I put into the Roth and use that. And you can. And you've got open architecture on your Roth IRA funds. It can be invested for maximum growth. Withdraw on contributions, right? Not earnings. So if you put in 50,000, over the years, and then when your child's going to college, account's worth 100, you can take out 50,000 without any penalty. And you can use it in any way possible. So if they're not going to an accredited university, or maybe they're going to a uni trade school or something of that nature that normally wouldn't have been covered, you have that flexibility using those funds. Now, there is an important caveat. When you do take from your own personal individual retirement account, Roth, you could be shortchanging your retirement. So having a good idea of where your retirement is with that withdrawal is really important. You also have the problem of annual contributions for making it into a Roth. You can only contribute up to 7,000 in 2024, and we believe that's going to be the same for 2025. So you're not going to have any changes on that. 529, you can put $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. So you do have some strict contribution limits into the Roth IRA. And there's income caps in regards to if you make too much money, you can't contribute. A 529 doesn't. So looking at a Roth could be, again, a supplementary bucket that you want to pull money from to pay for college. However, I would not recommend that it's your primary bucket because of the limitations that we talked about on there. Brokerage accounts. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm just going to open an investment account and do that, and it's going to grow for my children. The good thing is there's no income or contribution caps. You have total control over the investments. You can withdraw at any time for any reason. You are going to be subject to short-term and long-term capital gains, right? Those apply. And there's no upfront tax advantages in any way for these contributions. The thing is, you're just putting money over the side and investing it, and then you are being able to use it for anything that you want. It's a good way to accumulate wealth. I wouldn't say it's the most tax efficient way to pay for schooling. The other way is maybe you look at insurance. Now, insurance can be used for multiple purposes. The most common is for death, but the other that is very common is using insurance as an investment. So with insurance, there's no income or contribution caps. You have total control of the investments inside the insurance policy. The investments cannot lose value depending on the policy. The investments will grow tax deferred, just like the Roth, and you can access the funds for any reason. It doesn't have to be for a qualified education expense. Withdrawals can be taken in a tax advantaged way if you're taking it as a policy loan or something of that nature. You don't have to, again, use it at 18 or 21. Maybe you use the money because they got scholarships and you use it for a down payment in a house. You're also guaranteeing that the individual, maybe your son, your daughter, niece, nephew, has insurability later in life. And so sometimes something happens, you develop an ailment, asthma that's so bad, or something else that you're not able to get insured later in life. This guarantees your insurability and allows you to have a lot of flexibility. So is there one solution that is better than everyone? No, but you can utilize multiple ways depending on your outlook for education for the beneficiary and make your decisions based on that. Which is the best? Don't know. It depends on your situation. 529s are great, but you might want to fund a 529 and you might want to fund an insurance policy. And then maybe have a little UMTA, just to have, cash on the side. Or maybe you just put a little bit of money into a brokerage, an insurance plan, and a 529. You can use all of these things in conjunction. Which is best? Well, it depends on your specific situation and what your outlook is for education and the desire for flexibility. So what happens if your child doesn't go to college? Well, 529s have to be used for an education use, an accredited education, right? This must be a qualified education expense. You can change the beneficiary. It can be moved on to a family member, a niece, a nephew, something of that nature. You can just take the distributions from the 529. If you do, you'll pay your taxes and a 10% penalty because you didn't use it for a qualified education expense. On a Roth, now you can move the money that's in your 529 and it actually can move to a Roth, 35,000 as we talked about. So a 529 has to be open for 15 years or more. But then if they never went to school, you can move 35,000 into their lifetime or of their lifetime into the Roth. You have to have earned income, but it is allowed, which is fantastic because a lot of clients and individuals that I've talked to were always concerned about overfunding. Now you've got a little more leniency in regards to the overfunding. Covered L education accounts, if the kid doesn't go to school, doesn't use the money by 30, the amounts distributed to them is taxed on the amount. So again, you want to use it for a college education. Brokerage account, college doesn't, if your child doesn't go to college, you can use the money for anything you want. Down payment on a house, wedding, retirement, something of your own retirement. And like I said, on insurance, you can do the same. You've got flexibility to use the money for any other purposes or just keep it as a vehicle for retirement. So there are a few Q&A, few spots in regards to, understanding the college savings options. There's a lot of questions that come up normally when we are talking about 529s and all the other education savings vehicles that are available to parents and individuals. Here's a list of, some links that you'll be having access to. The deck's going to be sent out. Education, IRS, investment, uh, college investor, college savings plan network. You can see a lot of different state specific information about these um, different state plans, what college should probably cost in those states. So utilize these resources. They're important. The college investor I like is it has insights on different types of college savings, student loans, and investing for young adults. Always helpful. Savings for College has some online tools, articles to compare 529s, understanding financial aid, and just learn about more on savings at college. So with that, I appreciate your time today. We're going to have a little bit of a Q&A if you're watching this live. And we're always here to help promote the credit union, the membership that you have through the credit union. Fellows is a great partner to ask any questions in regards to, how do we do certain things in regards to 529s or other investing or financial planning or protection. But the credit union has a great partner, and we're excited to be able to continue that partnership and offer opportunities to better your financial situation or accomplish your goals. So thank you very much, and you have a great day.
Thank you, Michael. Do you mind just answering a couple questions I just wanted to go over really
Sure.
quick? Thank you. I am an account owner for my grandchildren's 529s. Three of the grandchildren are my sons, and one is my daughter's. Should I set up two separate accounts?
There are three total grandchildren.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or there are four total
four.
grandchildren,
There's four
three of
total.
her sons and one
And
of
one
her
other.
daughters.
Yeah.
So
I
two
would set up,
children, four grandchildren.
yeah, I would set up for individual ones. You could just set up one and keep changing the beneficiary and super fund it. However, you could get more state income tax benefit if you set up one for each child, potentially. So, also, their ages are going to differ. So their investment vehicle, your investment selection might vary based on their ages. If they're already 10, well, that investment selection is going to be less aggressive than somebody who's two. So it's important to probably, in this case, I would look at the ages and decide, hey, am I getting a tax benefit? Yes. Well, maybe I should open four. And then also, if they're all different ages, you're going to need different investment selections that are going to grow at a different pace and be more conservative or more aggressive, depending on when they're going to reach college.
Okay. Next question. I own a 529 account with unused funds in one child's 529 prepaid plan. Can some of the funds be rolled over to another child despite their having already exhausted their own 529 plans benefits and they don't need more tuition or fees? And then be rolled over to that unneedy child's respective Roth IRA.
Wow. Prepaid tuition is a different animal. You would have to see if you're able to transfer the prepaid tuition beneficiary. That's very state specific or university specific, depending on the prepaid tuition. If it's just a regular 529, yes, you can change the beneficiaries, and you could probably change it as long as that 529 has been available for 15 years. You can change the beneficiary to the person who doesn't need it and then put it into the Roth. You should be able to do that.
And again, are people welcome to contact you by phone or email with their 529 questions or even help opening one?
Yeah, absolutely. On the screen, we've got my cell phone, my office number. We also encourage you to email FAS@ussfcu.org, or you can utilize the link to schedule a 30-minute consultation with me, and we can talk through your goals and what you want to accomplish, and then we can go from there.
Thank you. I'll share all of that in the recap as well. Well, thank you, Michael.
You're welcome. Glad to be here. I hope everybody had a great afternoon, and I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you again soon.